morning. Current time is 6:15 a.m. It is still kind of dark out, the sun is starting to rise, but we're leaving for Sydney today. We are like 15 minutes off schedule, but we calculated that we'd leave around 6:30 anyways, even though we said 6. But it is getting lighter and we're preparing to leave, so we should be out in a couple of minutes. And then it'll just be steady sailing from here, although it is starting to spit, which isn't a really good start to our trip, but we'll see. Right, so 6:30, now it is quite bright and this sunrise is so pretty. Now, at this point, we weren't even very far into our trip when it started spitting. Yes, spitting. Well, it was actually really fast, so it could almost be counted as raining. And that kind of sucked because we weren't prepared for that. We wanted to have a nice and dry road, but the universe had other plans. Stop 1 at 8:19 was just at this little server. It was really cute and it was mostly just to use the bathroom and all, so it was a very quick stop. Stop 2 was at 10:13 and this was to have lunch and, a toilet break anyways because we're having lunch. But we did have lunch here, so this was a significantly longer break. And this type of road on the way from Melbourne to Sydney, or I suppose vice versa too, is one of my favorite parts about this highway. It's so cute and it's all just a little bit different than all normal roads, so it gives you the feeling that, oh, you're really going somewhere else. Also, just kind of randomly, these hills are very prominently etched into my memory for some reason. I don't even know why. They're not that special. But third stop was 12:20 at this submarine in Holbrook. I probably should have cared to read the history about this a little bit more, but basically, I'm not even entirely sure if this is a real or a fake submarine, but yes, it is not used at all anymore, and it's completely hollow from most of the insides, just the starting bit has some stuff in it, but it is a really cute attraction in this small little town, and we usually stop here anyways. Now, if you're not Australian, then you may not know this, but there is this political party in Australia called the United Australia Party. And they are the most annoying people on this planet because they cannot physically restrain themselves from shoving their advertising down your throat. See, Example, Exhibit A. There were so many signs like this on our trip, and it was so annoying because not only this, but they have so many YouTube ads that they keep on playing. Like, every other YouTube video I watch has their ad in front of it. And then all these billboards, and honestly, they really annoy me. So maybe if this party was a little bit nicer, I would be more inclined to listen to what they have to say because they don't annoy me so much. At 2:21, we stopped at Gundagai. And yes, this was a very quick stop considering how long our last break had been and all, but the problem was that we had to have lunch here because then there isn't another service station for like the next 250 kilometer stretch. So this is the last large major servo on this trip, so we kind of had to sit here and have lunch first and then move on, even though it hadn't been a long time since we had been driving. So yes. Now, the rest of the way was a very long drive because, again, there weren't any large service stations, so we didn't really have a reason to stop either because we already had lunch. So at this point, I also took the wheel a bit, and I was really tensed driving because this was my first time driving this car that we were traveling in. But anyways, I managed to not crash it, so that was good. Now, this was a bit of a recurring theme around these areas, but there is a lot of fog at night in Sydney and Queensland, which was shocking to me because it's kind of hot there. It's generally hotter there than it is in Melbourne, but we don't really see fog, but I suppose maybe it's because their areas are more humid. But the fog was really nice, and this is us entering into Sydney territory. Our next day of driving was actually day 3, and this was from Sydney to Gold Coast. Now, we set off at a reasonable time, we thought. Here we set off at around like 9:15, and that is after wasting an entire hour trying to get to the nearest Coles. It is ridiculous. Sydney streets are the actual worst. There's so many blocked off streets, there's so many streets that you can't access anything from, the streets are really tiny and cramped, and they have the lowest speed limit. So we were going to a Coles 3 kilometers away from our apartment. And guess how long that whole venture took? It took us 20 minutes to get there. 20 minutes! For 3 kilometers! And that's still significantly better than the other family that we were traveling with who were trying to get from Darling Harbour to the Opera House or Harbour Bridge. And they spent an entire hour trying to complete their commute because they just kept getting stuck behind roadworked and blocked off roads. Our first stop was around 12:30 on this incredibly hot day at this little cafe in the middle of kind of nowhere. We just basically stopped here to have a little snack, refuel, go to the bathroom and all, because we had been driving for a while at this point, and at this stage in driving you kind of need a break anyways. So we just had a break, again, a significantly long break, but that's mostly because we had like 16 people, and it's kind of difficult to coordinate with 16 people and have everything done chop chop. Break 2 was at 4:17, and we arrived in Coffs Harbour for the Big Banana. And now basically there's just a big banana here because they farm a lot of bananas. So this is a view of the gift shop, and I will be shortly showing you the Big Banana. this is the man, the myth, the legend himself, the Big Banana. I know, it's kind of not interesting, but it is a fun, kooky thing. Also, there was a lot of, like, turkeys here. I'm sorry, I don't know what kind of bird this is. But at this point, it was really bad because I had actually had coffee quite a while ago, and caffeine in general, while I'm traveling, does not sit well with me, and I was like really shaking. I was shaking a lot, and I felt like I was gonna faint every time I was walking, so it was pretty bad. And then we stopped by this place. I forgot when we stopped, and I forgot to do the whole watch thing, but there were so many birds here, and they were so loud. I forgot to take the time on this, but at 8:34 p.m. we stopped at this really cute BP servo. It's really cute. I don't know why. It's just a huge petrol station, and I liked it for some reason. It had nice vibes. Then we arrived in Queensland, and shortly after we also arrived in Gold Coast, because Gold Coast isn't actually that far away from the border. But this was getting really exciting now. And then soon we arrived at a very late time. We only arrived at like 10:15, but there was a whole debacle which I'll get into in my Gold Coast video. First stop on day 7 was at 10:40 from Gold Coast to Sydney at this little cute cafe thing. Honestly, this was just a refuel. We just had to just use the bathroom and all. And honestly, this was mostly just to get coffee. So it wasn't even a really large break, but it took a lot of time. And then I would like to pause this kind of documentation of a happy time in my life and shed some light on the situation that has been going around in Australia. So there have been massive, devastating floods this year in the Queensland and New South Wales region. It has been really, really hard on the people there, and I honestly wouldn't know. But we were driving through Lismore where the floods hit really hard too. And this was the devastation caused by them. And it was honestly so saddening to see. It was a kind of feeling you can't really describe, where you feel like you can connect with people, like you can understand, you can feel empathy for them. But at the same time, we don't really understand what they're going through. So my heart goes out to everyone who was even remotely involved in those floods. If you had family or friends in that flood, I hope everyone is safe now, and let's hope to a better future for these people in these areas and to everyone else around the world. And I really don't know how to transition back from that, but our next stop was here in this little town of Tenterfield. Pretty town, and there was also a cop there trying to get his lunch. And now I have nothing against cops getting their lunch from a place, but New South Wales, you have got to step up your police car game. That is an ugly car. And yes, for this trip back, we were taking a different highway than the one that we took on our journey upwards. And this is the New England Highway, and it's also a really cute road. Only problem is we were a little late to leave in the morning, so it got pretty dark when we were out here. Now, we quickly ran into some real problems with New South Wales in this. So they have a lot of speed cameras on this trip. There is so many, and the speed cameras, I'm not saying that we were speeding because we definitely weren't, but the speed cameras are in places that they really shouldn't be. So some stretches of road, the speed would go straight from 100 down to 60. I know, 100 down to 60 sounds insane, but there would just be a camera like 50 meters from the change of speed sign changes. There would be a camera. That is not enough time to safely slow down. And yes, you do see the board in advance, but a car going at 100 does not slow down to 60 that fast. And at sometimes it was even 100 to 50. There were also times where it was 100 to 80, and by this time you're probably realizing there was a lot of speed fluctuations on this trip, which may have contributed to us being incredibly very late. Our next stop was here at Nemingha, I suppose. We had dinner there. It was a pretty good dinner, honestly. It was just sandwiches. And then finally, after a very long day, at 3 a.m, we arrived back at our hotel. First stop on our last day, Sydney to Melbourne, was this little cute place, and I bought some food from here and nobody else really did, but it didn't really matter because we're road tripping, and if you want to eat something, you can eat it. So I took the back seats for this because I was feeling a little sick. Here is my spinach and ricotta roll. Here is my English work and my jumper because I need it sometimes. Over there are my Oreos and my headphones. And this is me, chilling. Next stop, we stopped here. This was a place called Goulburn, and there was a lot of things around here, but I suppose the main attraction would be the giant sheep they have in the middle of this intersection. And you can actually go inside and it outlines the history of wool farming in Australia, which is actually kind of cool but also incredibly boring and a lot of stairs to climb. Now, this next stop at Gundagai may seem a little bit later, but at the same time, we spent like 2 hours in that last place, so this was like a decent stretch of road to go down before we stopped. And yes, we're only at Gundagai at 6:30. So we just browse around here, a lot of Olivia Rodrigo albums for some reason. I suppose that might be popular with the locals. But the next stop was then this little Macca's, and we only just stopped for a bathroom break. Next stop again was just a little small bathroom break, and this was after we had entered Victorian territory. And now, home sweet, good old Victoria. It was getting late, but at the same time, it was great that we were actually in Victoria now, and it was just like smooth sailing from here. But because this was Victoria, we were also greeted by rain. And a lot of it, which was actually kind of nice and relaxing on our last stretch, but that is it for this adventure. I will be uploading more videos with my adventures in these particular cities that I visited, and I hope that you enjoyed this video of just road tripping around Australia, because it's something that we can tend to do a lot, but I know some countries don't tend to road trip. Other countries may have better public transport and they just choose to use that. And also, even after traveling this much, we stayed in the same country. And things didn't really change, but I hope this was fun nonetheless.